Rich CEO scolds a girl selling lemonade. Then sees who she's helping and buys everything. 2. Jonathan stood there silent. The girl's words echoed in his mind. He had spent years thinking only about money, meetings, and success. Now, a child selling lemonade was making him think harder than any deal ever had. He cleared his throat. "Where is your brother?" he asked. The girl looked nervous. She pointed down the street. "At home, sir. Mom is with him. He has a fever. She says the medicine is too much." Jonathan pressed his lips together. Something inside him wanted to walk away, but something stronger held him in place. He looked at the jug again. The lemonade was warm, the cups were cheap, but her effort was real. "How much have you made today?" he asked. The girl counted a few coins in her hand. $1.50, she said quietly. Jonathan felt a sting in his chest. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a bill. He placed it on the table. "I'll take all of it," he said. The girl's eyes widened. "All of it? But sir, I don't have that many cups." Jonathan gave a small nod. "That's fine. I'll still buy everything. You keep the money." Her face lit up. For a moment, the sadness in her eyes disappeared, replaced by pure relief. She grabbed the bill with trembling hands. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." Jonathan looked at her, and for the first time in years, he felt a strange warmth in his heart. It wasn't business. It wasn't profit. It was something else, something he had almost forgotten. He asked quietly, "What's your name?" "Lily," she said. Jonathan gave a small smile. "Lily, you're brave, very brave." The girl looked down shyly, but her lips curved into a tiny smile. Jonathan turned to leave, but then he stopped. Something told him this was not the end. He looked back at her stand, at the crooked sign, at her small figure standing alone on the street. And for the first time, he wondered if he was meant to do more than just buy lemonade. 2. Jonathan walked a few steps away, but his mind did not let him forget the little girl. He had bought the lemonade, yet it felt like he had only touched the surface of her struggle. He turned back. Lily was still there, fixing the cups, guarding her coins as if they were treasure. Jonathan came closer again. "Lily," he said, "where do you live?" The girl looked at him carefully, unsure if she should tell. After a pause, she pointed to a small street nearby. "Just over there. In the old apartment building." Jonathan nodded. "Can I walk you home?" Lily hesitated, then slowly nodded. She packed her things, lifted the jug and walked beside him. Her steps were small, her shoes thin. But she walked with determination. They reached the building. It was old and worn. Paint peeled from the walls, and the stairway smelled of damp air. Lily climbed quickly, leading him to a small door on the 3rd floor. She knocked softly. A tired voice from inside asked, "Lily, is that you?" The door opened, and a woman stood there. Her face was pale, her hair tied back loosely. Behind her, on a thin mattress, lay a little boy, coughing weakly. Jonathan felt his chest tighten. The boy's face was thin, his skin pale, his eyes heavy with sickness. The woman looked at Jonathan, surprised. Who are you?" Before Jonathan could answer, Lily spoke. "Mom, this is the man who bought all the lemonade." She showed her mother the money, her eyes shining with relief. "Now we can buy the medicine." The mother's eyes filled with tears. She held Lily close, whispering, "Oh, sweetheart." Then she turned to Jonathan. "Sir, thank you. You don't know what this means." Jonathan shook his head slowly. "It's nothing," he said. Though deep inside, he knew it was not nothing. He had given money before, donations to charities, but this felt different. This was real. He was standing in the middle of someone's struggle, seeing it with his own eyes. The little boy coughed again. Jonathan stepped forward. "What medicine does he need?" The mother sighed. "The doctor said antibiotics. But they cost more than we can afford. I didn't know how to manage." Jonathan looked at the boy, then at Lily, then back at the mother. His decision was quick. "Get ready," he said firmly. "We're going to the pharmacy right now." The woman's eyes widened. "Sir, you've already done enough. We can't." Jonathan raised a hand. "Please. Let me help." For the first time in years, he felt his heart guiding him more than his mind. 2. Jonathan stood inside the small apartment, looking at the boy on the mattress. The child's breathing was heavy, and his cough shook his thin body. The air in the room felt heavy too, filled with worry. Get your things, Jonathan said again. His voice was calm but firm. We're going to the pharmacy now. Lily's mother looked at him with disbelief. Sir, I don't even know you. You're a stranger. Why would you do this? Jonathan paused. He realized he had no perfect answer. He had spent years telling people what to do, leading companies, making big decisions, but now he simply said, because you need help. And I can give it. The mother's eyes softened. She looked at her son and then at Lily, who stood clutching the coins she had earned. Finally she nodded slowly. She wrapped a thin blanket around the boy and lifted him carefully. Jonathan stepped forward. Let me, he said, and without waiting, he picked the boy up in his arms. The child was so light that Jonathan felt a sharp ache in his chest. He carried him gently, as though afraid he might break. Together they left the apartment. Lily held her mother's hand, walking quickly down the stairs. Neighbors peeked out from their doors, curious, but no one spoke. Outside the street was loud with traffic and chatter. Jonathan signaled to his driver, who had been waiting nearby. The sleek car pulled up. But Jonathan didn't care about appearances anymore. He only cared about the boy in his arms. The family climbed in, and the car moved toward the nearest pharmacy. Lily sat on the edge of the seat, holding the jug of lemonade on her lap like it was still part of her mission. Her mother kept looking at Jonathan, as though still unsure if this was real. At the pharmacy Jonathan carried the boy inside. The pharmacist looked surprised, but Jonathan spoke directly. We need antibiotics. The best you have for a child, and anything else he needs to recover. The pharmacist began preparing the medicine. The mother stepped forward. Sir, I can't repay you. Jonathan looked at her. I'm not asking for repayment. I just want your son to get well. Lily tugged at Jonathan's sleeve. Sir, thank you, she whispered. Her small eyes shone with a mix of gratitude and relief. When the pharmacist returned with a bag of medicines, Jonathan paid without hesitation. He added vitamins, supplements, even fresh fruit juice from the small cooler. He wanted to make sure nothing was missing. Back in the car, Lily's mother gave the boy the first dose right away. Jonathan watched as the boy swallowed weakly, then leaned back against his mother. For the first time, his breathing sounded a little calmer. The car returned to their building. Jonathan helped them upstairs again, carrying the boy carefully. Inside the apartment, the mother laid him back on the mattress. She looked at Jonathan with tears in her eyes. You've done more than I can ever explain. Thank you. Sir, Jonathan shook his head. He looked around the apartment. It was small, with only the basics, a table, 2 chairs, the mattress on the floor. He noticed the fridge was almost empty, and the shelves had only a few dry goods. He turned to Lily. Do you always sell lemonade here? Lily nodded. Whenever it's warm. I just want to help Mom. Jonathan felt something stir deep inside him again. He thought about his own life, his big house, his expensive meals, his endless meetings. He thought about how much he had, and how little this family had. Yet here was a girl, standing in the street, fighting for her brother with nothing but lemonade. He sat down for a moment, which was unusual for him. He looked at the mother and said softly, Do you have work? She shook her head. I clean houses sometimes, but it's not steady. Since my son got sick, I can't leave him alone. Jonathan stayed quiet. He was not used to this, listening to someone's real struggle. Normally people came to him for contracts, for deals, for opportunities. This was different. This was life, raw and unpolished. After a long pause, he spoke. Tomorrow I'll send someone with groceries. And I'll arrange for a doctor to check on him regularly. The mother covered her mouth with her hand, unable to speak. Lily's eyes went wide. Really? A doctor? For my brother? Jonathan nodded. Yes, he deserves to get better. For a moment, silence filled the small apartment. It was not the silence of worry, but of hope slowly taking root. Jonathan stood up. Rest now. I'll come back tomorrow. He turned toward the door, but before he left, Lily ran to him. She hugged him tightly around his waist. You saved him, she whispered. You really saved him. Jonathan froze. The hug of a child was something he had not felt in years. Slowly, almost awkwardly, he placed his hand on her shoulder. A warmth spread through him. A feeling far more powerful than any deal he had ever closed. As he left the apartment and stepped back into the night, Jonathan knew his life had just changed. The rich CEO who once scolded a girl at a lemonade stand now found himself drawn into something far bigger than money. For the first time, he wanted to give, not for profit, not for show, but because it was right. The next morning, Jonathan sat at his dining table in his large house. The place was quiet, polished, and perfect. Yet it felt empty. He sipped his coffee, but his thoughts were far away. He kept seeing Lily's face, her tired mother, and the boy lying weak on the mattress. For years, Jonathan had lived only for himself and his business. He measured his success by numbers and contracts. But now, after one evening, his view was shifting. He thought about how Lily stood on the street, trying to do what even adults found hard, taking responsibility when life was unfair. He put his cup down and called his assistant. "I need groceries delivered to an address," he said. He gave the location of the apartment. "Make sure it's enough for a month. Fresh food, milk, vegetables, fruit, everything." His assistant was surprised but obeyed without question. Jonathan then called a private doctor he knew. "I want you to visit a child today," he said. "He has a fever. Bring whatever equipment you need." After arranging everything, Jonathan felt something unusual. Peace. It was not the peace of finishing a deal but the peace of doing something meaningful. By afternoon, he returned to the apartment himself. When he entered, he saw Lily and her mother organizing bags of food. The little boy was sitting up for the first time, a blanket around his shoulders. "Sir!" Lily ran to him, smiling wide. "Look at all this food, and the doctor came. My brother got medicine." The boy looked at Jonathan shyly and whispered, "Thank you." Jonathan knelt slightly, meeting his eyes. "You just focus on getting better," he said gently. The mother wiped her eyes. "You've given us hope. I don't know how to repay you." Jonathan shook his head. "You don't need to repay me. Just take care of your children." He sat with them for a while. The apartment was small, but it felt warmer than his mansion. Lily showed him her crayons and her school books. She told him about how she loved math but had stopped going to school sometimes to help her mother. Jonathan listened, something he rarely did with anyone. He asked her, "Do you want to go back to school full time?" "Yes," Lily said softly. "But I don't want to leave my mom alone." Jonathan thought for a moment. "What if I arrange help for your family? Then you can study and still know your mom is okay." Lily's eyes brightened. "Really? You'd do that?" Jonathan nodded. "Yes." For the rest of the day, Jonathan stayed longer than he had planned. He talked with the mother about her work, and about her son's treatment. He even helped Lily pour the last of her lemonade into cups, and they all shared it together. It was sweet, a little watery, but it felt special. As the evening came, Jonathan finally stood up to leave. Before he left, the boy whispered again, "Thank you for buying the lemonade." Jonathan smiled. "It was the best lemonade I've ever had." Walking back to his car, Jonathan felt lighter. For once, his thoughts were not on meetings or profits. They were on a little girl, her brother, and their mother. And the way a small lemonade stand had changed his own life. That night, as he sat in his large, quiet house, Jonathan realized he had a choice. He could go back to being the same man, or he could step into this new path. A path where his wealth wasn't just for him, but for others who truly needed it. And in his heart, he already knew what his choice would be. Jonathan stood there in silence, the late afternoon sun stretching golden beams across the city street. The small lemonade stand looked so ordinary, so fragile. Yet in that moment it felt like the center of the universe. The little girl, with her yellow cap slightly too big for her head, was carefully arranging the few lemons left in her basket, as if protecting something sacred. Her tiny hands trembled slightly, but her eyes were steady, eyes that had seen more struggle than any child should have to endure. Jonathan's chest tightened. He had spent years inside glass towers, behind mahogany desks, signing million-dollar contracts without a second thought. Yet here he was, feeling undone by a child who sold lemonade for pennies. He remembered the first time he saw her. How he had snapped, scolding her for standing outside Harper Tech's headquarters. In his mind, she was just another distraction in his perfect, polished world. But now he understood. She wasn't a distraction. She was the truth he had been running from. He stepped closer. The girl looked up, her innocent gaze searching his face. "Sir," she whispered, "I don't have many cups left. Maybe just 3. Jonathan swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. "I'll take them all," he said softly. Then he paused, his voice cracking. "In fact, I'll take everything you have." The girl blinked in surprise. "But you don't even know how much it costs." Jonathan smiled faintly. A rare smile that wasn't about business or power. "I know it's worth more than I could ever pay." He pulled out his wallet, thick with credit cards and cash. Symbols of the empire he had built. But for the first time, he didn't feel proud of it. He felt small. He handed her far more than the lemonade was worth. Enough to buy every lemon on the street. The girl's eyes widened, and she shook her head. "No. Sir, it's too much." Jonathan knelt down, lowering himself to her level. "It's not too much," he said gently. "Because what you're doing, helping someone you love, that's priceless." A shadow moved nearby. And Jonathan turned to see the frail figure of a woman leaning against the wall. Her skin was pale, her hands trembling as she held onto the brick for support. The little girl rushed to her side instantly. "Mom, look, he bought everything." Jonathan froze. The woman's hollow cheeks and tired eyes told a story words could never capture. This was who the girl was helping. This was the reason for the stand. For the long hours in the sun. Not for toys or sweets, but for survival. Jonathan felt a lump rise in his throat. He walked over, extending his hand. "Mom," he said quietly. "You don't know me, but my name is Jonathan. And I think I was meant to meet you today." The woman looked at him. Her eyes shimmering with gratitude and disbelief. "We don't need charity," she whispered, her pride still standing tall despite her frailty. Jonathan shook his head. "This isn't charity. This is a second chance. For me." For a moment, silence hung between them. Cars passed, people walked by. But Jonathan only heard the beating of his own heart. A heart that had been buried under years of ambition and arrogance, now breaking open in the presence of truth. He crouched down again, facing the girl. "Listen to me," he said softly. "From today you're not alone anymore. I want to help. Not because I feel sorry for you, but because you reminded me what it means to be human." The girl's lips trembled as she tried to smile. Her small hands gripped his, and in that touch, Jonathan felt more wealth than in all his years of boardrooms and stock markets. That evening, Jonathan didn't return to his office. Instead he walked with them, through the crowded streets, past the noise of the city, carrying the basket of empty lemonade cups as if it were the most important thing in the world. Neighbors watched curiously, whispering about the millionaire CEO walking alongside a struggling family. But Jonathan didn't care. For once the world's judgment didn't matter. When they reached the small apartment where the girl and her mother lived, Jonathan felt his chest ache. The walls were cracked, the door barely held its hinges. And yet inside there was warmth. A kind of warmth he had never found in his luxury penthouse. The mother offered him a seat, embarrassed by the simplicity of her home. But Jonathan sat with dignity, as if he were in a palace. He listened as she told her story. How sickness had taken her job, how bills piled up. How her daughter had stepped in with nothing but lemons and hope. Each word cut deeper into Jonathan's heart. He realized then that success meant nothing if it wasn't shared, if it didn't lift others up. Before he left, Jonathan made a quiet promise. He would cover her medical bills. He would ensure the girl went to school without worry. And more than that, he would visit. Not as a CEO, not as a benefactor. But as Jonathan, the man who had finally remembered what it meant to care. As he walked out into the night, the city lights sparkled differently. For years they had represented profit, ambition, and conquest. Tonight, they represented possibility. A chance to start again, not as the ruthless CEO, but as a man with a heart. Jonathan paused at the corner, looking back one last time at the little window glowing with faint light. The girl waved at him. Her smile radiant, her hope alive. And Jonathan whispered to himself, "You saved me more than I saved you." From that day forward, Harper Tech wasn't just a company. It became a place where kindness was woven into every decision, every policy, every heart. Employees whispered about the change in their CEO. He still wore the sharp suits. Still signed the contracts, but behind every decision was a man who had been touched by a child's courage. And in quiet moments, when Jonathan sat alone in his office, he would look at the small yellow cap the girl had given him as a gift. He kept it on his desk, not as a reminder of pity, but as a symbol of the day his life truly began. For in helping her he had found himself. Friends, if you believe that even the smallest act of kindness can change a life, remember this story. And if you want to hear more heart-touching stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for giving your precious time to this story.